that's good.
I should have asked you that question. Oh, that's beautiful.
Behind the scenes. Yeah. We'll get to it. No, it's good.
I am so excited to hear Bisi. I'm so glad you came and joined us.
So what you do?
Hello, Legit Squad. Bisi here, and we're having a legit chat. We're doing this Thank You Divorce series, and so I have Pastors Cheryl and Kelvin here, and we're gonna have a legit chat with this legit couple. I met Pastor Cheryl on the speaking campus that we both are involved in, and our relationship has just evolved, and we've had really great conversations on the back. And I just wanted to bring it to the front end. So with the Thank You Divorce series, it's really taking a couple, either one of them or both couples have, or both partners have been married before and have been divorced and now are in another marriage. And so we're talking about the journey from being divorced to remarrying and what that looks like. So Pastor Cheryl, Pastor Kelvin, I want to start with, how did you feel when you got divorced?
Well, that's a good question. In my case, I felt relieved. A lot of pressure. When you're in a dysfunctional relationship, it's hard on both parties. And the realization came to it was time to end. And for various reasons, everybody have their side of the story, who fault it was, what taking place. But the end result was it was better to dissolve the marriage rather than continue on and not being happy. So. And
how long ago was this? How old were you?
Oh, I was 29 years old.
Okay.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, kind of young, right?
Yeah.
20s. And Pastor Cheryl?
So I was in my early 20s as well. I was about 25
Okay.
at the time that I was married. And when we divorced, actually, it was a relief, as Pastor Kelvin mentioned, but at the same time, I was a little hurt because I was already in church. I had met him in church, and I just believed that as we were together, because we both loved God, that it was just supposed to work.
Right.
And when it didn't work, then it kind of left me questioning some things. But ultimately, I knew that he wasn't the right one because I married him for the wrong reasons.
Love that.
And so as we released, then I was able to release and rediscover myself, and then I met this handsome gentleman right here next to me.
Okay, not yet. Not yet. Okay, and so I asked that question specifically because of that. A lot of people say it was devastating, but there's also the relief part, just not being connected to somebody that feeds you, like feeds your soul and where you're aligned to. So that's why I asked that. So that was good. And did you have hope? Did you want to get married again? Did you go through like what did you go, like what kind of emotions did you go through after that?
Okay, questions for myself?
Both of you, whoever wants to answer.
Well, initially, I think I was emotionally retreated.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to open myself up to be hurt again. I was crushed by the act of the divorce, how he behaved, where it left me, and I was almost a little emotionally bankrupt in the sense that what did I have to give, or what did I want to give? That's a better way to say it. For someone else. And so after we divorced, I didn't want to actually get married again for a period of time. I knew ultimately I wanted to, but I just knew I needed to take some time to rediscover me, to find me, so it could be two whole people coming together next time and not me looking for someone for a different reason, just because I wanted to be married or wanted a father for my child.
Okay. So how did you get there to rediscovering yourself again?
I just stayed in the Word.
Okay.
I tell you, I did. I just went back to church. I stayed in the Word. I was studying, and I just got busy doing His business. And there's a saying, if you're about God's business, He'll be about your business. And so I just truly believe that, and I know that in my heart I wanted to be married, that I was supposed to have a family, and that wasn't the end of the story. So I just needed to continue to work, and that He was going to bring somebody to me. And actually, I went back to the desert where I believed that I was not going to find anyone. I was just going to rest in discovering me and being about His business. But it worked out really wonderfully that I was obedient and I went where He told me to go.
And that word His business is really Christianese for God's business.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying. Pastor Cheryl, you mentioned that you have a son. You had a son when you got divorced. How old was he, and how did that change the dynamic or how you were feeling going through a divorce and in choosing a partner?
So in going through he was about 5.
Okay.
So in going through the divorce, that was what was hard, because I wanted to be an example. My parents had been married for 50 years, so divorce wasn't even a part of the question. My siblings had remained married, so I was the only one who was going through an actual divorce. So it felt personal to me that maybe it was something that I hadn't done. And I wanted my son to have a father, and I wanted him to know what it was like to have a man and what it was like to have a godly relationship. So I think the most devastating part was the effect that it would have on my son. And the way that we recouped is that he was able to see me. He was able to see me to continue on, one courageous step in front of the next, in order to just survive, trusting God's word all the way.
Okay. So I want to get into some statistics. We've heard for the longest time that 50% of all marriages end in divorce, and you would think the more people get married, the better it becomes, or it turns out, but the number actually goes high. I think it's 60% for second and then 75% for third, or something like that. Why do you think that's so?
That's a good question. I think that a lot of people get married for the wrong reasons. It's the right thing to do, but the wrong reasons why you're getting married. And when you get married to someone because of a physical attraction, because of the way they physically make you feel, it's emotional driven, but it's not really built upon the substance of the character of the person. So I think that in this world that we live in right now, everything is sexually gravitated to attraction, is pleasing the eyes and pleasing the feelings. But the truth of the matter is that we need to start looking back what marriage really is. Marriage is a holy institute. It's sacred. But there's no sacred in marriage today. When you find couples that get together because they hooked up last night and last week and they're fun to be around, but when the fun stops and all of the busyness stops, then what do you have? You have each other. But if you don't have character, and you don't have substance, you don't have values, and you don't have morals, the marriage starts to break down real fast. You start to see the side of the person, the real side of the person, because most people will put their mask on and show you that side, and they'll live through that mask as long as they can. But when that mask is removed, you say, wow, who is this person? And you find out that you've been in a relationship that was built on feelings. And feelings will fail you every time.
Yeah, so where do you think the root of this, where do you think it comes from? Marrying for the wrong reasons? Because obviously 50%,
Okay, that's a good question. And I think it comes from, there's this term called hedonism, God of self. People want to do what they want to do and don't want to bow down and listen to anyone else. So if you hear most people today, they say, well, I do what I want to do. I don't care what nobody thinks. Well, you got to care what somebody thinks. So if you don't have a compass, a moral compass, then you'll start pulling values from what you think they're supposed to be, but it's based on a fallacy. But when you have something centered, we God-fearing people. So one of the things that we teach in our faith is that you date to the purpose of getting married. So if I'm going to date you for any extended time, it's a time of evaluation of who you are as a person, and do I want to spend the rest of my life with you?
Right.
Right.
But when you take and you convolute it with sex and drugs and all the other things, the sensibility of what you're there for changes. Because now I'm with you because you make me feel good. You make me laugh. You're fun to be around. Oh yeah, we're gonna get married. But then the substance of the person is not there because your values don't line up, your morality don't line up, the things that your non-negotiables don't line up. But you don't find it till after you got married.
Yeah.
And now you're 1 year down, 2 years, 3 years down the road, you're saying, how did I get here? I think if we back it up and simplify things and say, I'm going to date, but I'm not dating to sleep with you.
Yes.
I'm dating to know you.
Yes. Yeah.
And guess what? If you be with a person long enough, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaking.
Yes.
If I hang around you long enough, I can know who you are.
Yes.
Well, you can date a person for 6 months without sleeping with them. And I guarantee you, you'll know whether or not you be in that relationship for 6 months or 3 months or 2 months. Because it'll change. Because the real person will show up. But when you convolute it with sex, you start to make exceptions.
So,
So true.
do you think, I totally agree. And I call dating collecting data,
That's
right?
it.
So, do you think though that the church prepares us for marriage? Because, you know, there's singles ministry and then there's like a ministry for marriage, but like how to date and how to take care of yourself while you're dating, how to relate with each other. Do you think we actually get into the nitty gritty of those things in church?
Go ahead, Pastor.
No, I was going to say we do.
Okay.
We do. We believe in making sure that people understand how to apply biblical principles to real life application, right? Like, what does that look like when you're dating? How do you have enough distance between the two of you guys? How do you have real conversations? How do you remove the veil? How do you actually ask real questions that matter? Not the surface, but let's go to the bottom. And so both people should be able to answer that question honestly without fear of any kind of repercussions, because that's the purpose of dating. Like, I really want to get to know you.
Yeah.
And that was one of the benefits of Pastor Kelvin and I, that we had real conversations when we got together. We asked each other the hard questions up front. And so my meter was, could he answer those questions clearly and from his heart, or was he giving me just fluff?
Right.
And he was answering the real questions. And the same for me. I gave him the real information, right, honey?
That's right.
I gave him
Absolutely.
because I didn't have time to waste, right? I had already been divorced. And so when we started to date again, I didn't want to play games. I didn't want to date for years and years and years, because I just believed that I already knew what I was looking for. And I wanted a man who knew what he was looking for, and let us both come together and ask questions and get to know one another without having to worry about this flesh.
Okay.
Can I ask
Yeah,
a
of
question
course.
too? One of the things that, you know, you asked about the church and the responsibility toward the congregation and the area of guiding them. I think that every young couple or every young person should have a mentor. A godly example, somebody that's doing life right, that I can glean off, that I can watch, that I can model myself after. But when you're in a society where I don't want you to tell me what to do, and I want to keep my stuff private, and I don't want you to know my ugly, people don't have genuine relationships. I don't have someone that I can, like when I was younger, I didn't have someone I could speak to honestly, to talk about my pains, talk about my challenges, and so forth. So if I was with that information and not without that information and dating a woman, then I wouldn't know how to properly court a woman, because the world tells me you date to have sex. But the truth of the matter, no, I date to get data points, as you just said. I date to get information to see if you're the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. But we in this hookup society right now, it's not about that. It's what can you do for me tonight? Tomorrow, I don't even know your name. And I think that the church responsibility starting in with your willingness to submit to the things of God and the ordinances of God. And if you're not willing to, then you would never get into a small group that deals with single issues. You would never get into a marriage group, deal with marriage issues, because you don't want nobody to know what's behind the
I was
mask.
just getting ready to say that.
Okay,
Yeah.
because he wanted to say something.
So the church is limited unless the person is willing.
I love that.
We
I
can
love
only go
that.
as far
So
as
far.
you let us go,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So when we're asking questions or we want to share information, it's only based upon the data that you're giving us. And then, do you actually want to do it?
Right.
So on the flip side of that, some people don't want to come to a pastor or have those close relationships because they don't want the information that they're going to receive on the other side, right? To live a holy life. What does that look like? What does that mean? How do you keep yourself pure? What does that mean? What does that look like? Do I even want to do that? Right?
And it's not hard. It really is not. A lot of it, that fear is a false perception of something that's not real, and you make it real by your inaction to move on it. And you see most people that go to church, they get there late and they leave early. Why? Because they don't want to have no accountability. They don't want to build a relationship with God-honoring people. And we say a holy life. It's not being so rigid. You don't have fun. You don't do anything. In fact, we had a get together, right? And we had invited a couple. There was a very young couple, and they had not been connected with church. So we invited them over to our event. So they came by and they walked in this room here. They walked by, they looked, they said, that can't be them, and they didn't have too much fun. They walked around, they kept looking for us. They said, wait, they said, man, we couldn't believe this was the church. We danced, we had all kind of fun.
I love that.
They said that we thought church was different than this here. I never around church was having much fun as you guys, but that's how God made fun. He made us to laugh and enjoy ourselves. You can do all the things without sinning.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, that was a true story too.
I love that. So basically, what I'm hearing is we have to be intentional. The church can only go so far. And so if you find a community where, you know, you can have a mentor, you also have to do your part to bringing that openness. So that was great. Pastor Kelvin, did you want to get married? I don't know if you answered that question. Did you want to get married again after going through your divorce?
Yes, I did. I loved marriage.
Okay.
And when I got a divorce, it wasn't my first choice. In fact, I waited 2 years before I actually filed the paperwork, hoping things would turn around. But it didn't, so I was left with to live the future that I don't want to live or make a change to get the future that I desire. And I was willing to make the change. And at that time, I wasn't going to church. I was always believed in God as a young man. I had definitely a relationship with God. But as I got older, I walked away, you know, to live life, you know, with you. I don't go to church no more. I'm going to do my thing. But I still had the moral values. But when I got my divorce, I said, man, I love marriage. But I didn't go get married. I ran the street for 10 years. I did what most people do. Like, I let my head off, things I couldn't do while I was married because I married my childhood sweetheart. So I was a little while, but then I came to the realization that I can't keep doing life like this. So it lasted for 6 years. And then after 6 years of being single, I started preparing myself for marriage. And I met my wife 4 years later.
So as a man, how did you prepare yourself for marriage?
I woke up one day and I knew something was missing in my life, and it was God. I knew him, but I wasn't walking with him. And I started seeking him out, and I started being around godly men and women. I started seeing what healthy relationships look like. And I had groups that were surrounding me with people that's doing the right thing rather than promoting the wrong thing. And then gradually over a 6 year period, my life started changing. See, I was 34, so 6 years. My life started changing, and it took 6 years to get to the point where I really knew who I was.
And you have how many kids?
I have biological, I have 3 kids.
And Cheryl one. And then you guys, how did blending that family, how did it look like? It was easier because 2 of my kids were already grown. And I had one child she was 14. Yeah, my daughter was 14 years old. We came together. Irvin was 12. No, she was 4 years older than Irvin. So
she's about 3. So they were really close in age.
3 to 4 years
and
apart.
Still in high school together.
And one of the things that we, at that point, we knew exactly what we wanted out of life, know what we didn't want. So we had marriage counseling, premarital counseling was very, very important. And I had a mother-in-law that wouldn't let me go. Every time I go to the house, she put this rope and hit the floor. She said, I got a question for you. Sit down, boy. And so she asked me all the hard questions.
So true.
My pastor of my church said, hold down, wait a minute, I need to talk to you. He wanted to make sure I wasn't coming through picking up one of his congregants and trying to be what men do. And I have her questions. She had to go through vetting with her brothers and her sisters.
Oh man,
and
you went through it as it should be.
But I was clear what I wanted.
What you wanted.
And we were both grown. I was 40 years old.
Okay.
And my wife was whatever age she was at that time. and so it was clear. And in fact, when I met her, I said, look, I'm looking for a wife.
Okay.
If you don't,
Very direct.
if you're not looking to get married,
okay.
if you're not looking to get married, I don't have time.
Okay.
And so that was just the start of the vetting process.
Okay.
And so people say, oh yeah, I want to get married. Oh, okay. But over time, we'll know.
Okay.
But we both was ready. We had reached a point in our life where we kind of was clear about who we were, and I think that helped a lot.
Okay. So what I hear is you met in the church, right? And so you had the same morals. We call it the same zip code, right?
Yes.
Same morals, values, and so you were aligned in that way. I want to get into sex. So not waiting to have sex has worked out great for some people. You see people who didn't wait and they're happily married and everything is going fine. So in the Christian community, I personally know that certain people struggle with that, certain Christians struggle with that. They're like, well, it worked out great for them. Why are we even waiting? So a question I have for you is, what is the importance of waiting? You talked about, meeting someone and you hook up and, you go from there. But what if they wait for a while and after a while it's just, well, we're going to get married anyway, right? So what's the point? So my question is, what is the point of actually waiting till you get married?
Good question. The first thing you say, I'm a Christian. Well, if I'm a Christian, that means I submit myself to God. Mm-hmm. And God says getting married, having sex without being married is called fornication. That's sin. So what I'm saying is that I'm a Christian, but I really don't believe what I'm reading. Mm-hmm. I really don't submit to the things that I say I submit to. You my Lord and you my Savior, so why I gotta listen to you? That's fallacy. But let's go even further than that. Mm-hmm. When you have sexual intercourse, you literally bring together two become one flesh. You literally committing soul ties. Mm-hmm. So what you do is you connecting yourself with someone that could possibly be, probably won't be your husband or your wife. So you have a lot of people around here connected to many different souls that's talking about, I want to marry you now, but you've been slept with Tom, Dick, and Harry, and you tied to 20 other persons. So when I see you and we married now you run into that guy that rocked your world, and the minute you see him, everything that you married, you stand on starts to flutter because you got a soul tie with this person that rocked your world that's not your husband. You create a problem before you even start. So many people, I think that even if you were sexually active prior to you getting married, you got to go to God and ask for forgiveness. You got to cleanse yourself and ask Him to help you break the soul ties, to break the yokes that's around your neck, and then you're ready to marry someone else. But when you start to have sexual intercourse prior to you getting married, your value systems or what your non-negotiables will start to slide. And that's the danger of it, because now I'm going to get married to you for the reason that I'm going to have fear of losing what you're making me feel like, but you don't have the outlook or the goals or the desires or the things that I want in my future, but I'm going to make an exception this time. Mm-hmm. There is the hints for divorce. Mm-hmm. Because when it comes to self-sacrificing, you started off being selfish. I'm going to marry you for my own selfish reasons. Mm-hmm. But then when it comes to me to sacrifice, am I willing to sacrifice? Most times is no. Mm-hmm. The values are all messed up. Mm-hmm. So sex before marriage, I think, is definitely a no, because if the person is worth marrying, and to put it this way here, sex is as good as you want it to be. Let's say you marry someone and the sex start off to be not so good. Well, if that person loves you, they will work at getting to the place where they're pleasing you in the things that you like. And that's where the selflessness was started. Mm-hmm. So I don't have to know how good you are in bed, because that comes over time.
Mm-hmm. So we grow in that.
Absolutely.
Okay. You do. When if we do things the way that God intended us to do, right? Mm-hmm. When you have that first interaction, those two people come together, that's all you know. you're not comparing that person with all the
To
other
your parents.
relationships that you've had before. And everybody remembers that first time, if it was done right, without under duress or anything, right? You end up really caring about that person. And so really you are tied now with that one. And so that is what you're working on. So you don't have to worry about or start thinking about, okay, well, I'm not satisfied. I don't have to try it out first or do all these different things. It's two people who love each other, who have a heart connection, a mind connection, now a body and soul connection that's coming together like this. And that is something that someone wouldn't be able to tear apart if they're not trying to see or compare. Because you know, comparison is going to take you down the wrong road.
Yeah.
And the thing too is that when you have transparency, that helps a whole lot, because many people that are married don't really communicate. I won't tell you my deepest, darkest secret, because you're not making me feel well in the bed. We talk about sex, and you're not doing it like I like it, but I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to hurt your feelings. Well, it's best to talk about it now so we can work over time to improve it.
Yes.
If I like to be touched a certain way, I like to be held a certain way, then I need to know that. But if you're holding that data from me, then how can I be pleasing to you? And so I want to know. And if I'm not, if I am, you say, oh baby, that rocked my world last night. Okay, I'm going there again. Okay, I want to know how to rock your world every night. But the thing is that when you into this self-absorbed, egotistic type of society, we don't let our vulnerabilities know. I don't let you know what I'm weak about. I don't let you know when I'm hurting, and that's the problem that ends up in divorce. I'm